and the black contain equal amounts of good and bad. They may be opposite to one another, but they are both fundamentally necessary in order for the universe to
The
exist. It would be
expression
like having light without
is
darkness, which
different.
is another dualism that one could project onto the yin yang symbol, one of many. Most importantly, for the purposes of this discussion, I must inform you that the dualism of masculine and feminine are also projected onto the yin yang symbol. Just like light and darkness, or chaos and order, the masculine and feminine are equal forces of nature that influence the makeup of the universe. They are opposite, but equal. They have negative qualities, but equally as many positive qualities. With that said,
And neither
some
can
might ask
exist
why
without the
femininity
other.
is attributed to chaos and masculinity to order. Also, despite what I said about chaos and order being equally good and bad, some might also ask how order could end up being equally as bad as chaos. In order to answer these questions, I will start by answering an even deeper question.
Totalitarian,
How did these categories
baby.
originate? Well, they're very ancient ideas. They existed long before science, long before people truly understood how the world functioned. In order for our
This is
primordial
Max there.
ancestors to have made sense
He's
of
more,
the world
you
around
know.
them, about why the world is the way it is and what humanity's purpose is, they had to invent imperfect categories to make sense of things. In order to make firm categories that everybody could agree on, one would need to ask what is certain about the world around us. Well, there's day and night, earth and sky, life and death, and also male and female. Another thing that is certain is that the females are the ones that produce life, that produce children. At some point, a present thought dawned on
Right?
one of our ancestors. What gave life to the world? How did the universe come to be? In order to make sense of this, humans created imperfect categories and then projected them on everything. In the case of life's origin, ancient societies conceived of a great mother goddess. Just as females give birth to children, the great goddess gave birth to life itself. According to Erich Neumann, figures of this great mother goddess were produced in the earliest periods of human history, back in the Stone Age. These four pictures depict the great mother goddess, thought to be produced anywhere between 20,000 and 12,000 years ago. These are, apparently, four of about only 60 Stone Age sculptures known to us, of which there are 55 female figures and only 5 male figures. These particular figures were found in France, in the entrances of caves devoted to a magical hunt cult. The goddess, this makes clear, stood at the center of the group life enacted in these caves. What this suggests is the dominance of the matriarchal, regardless whether and to what extent the male, e.g., the hunter group, seized power over the woman in this epoch. This makes sense because if you want to ensure the prolonging of one's life, as well as a number of beasts to hunt, kill, and eat, you want to please the goddess that produced and produces that life.
Within
Following
reality,
the invention
only the
of the great
goddess is
mother
known.
goddess,
The
the
father
inevitable
is
question
absent.
arises. Where did the great mother goddess
Spirit,
come from? This invokes other questions too,
the
like where did the
chariot,
universe
and
itself come from? The first attempts to understand such a question are made around the same period. Neumann cites the most famous symbol of the
by
universe's origin,
Barbella,
one that originated in Egypt
his
around the 14th
placenta,
century BC. This is the
feeding us
symbol of the
knowledge and
Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail. What you see here is the earliest known depiction of the Ouroboros. This was on one of the shrines enclosing the sarcophagus of Tutankhamun. There is a complicated history regarding the Ouroboros in
Did I
Egypt
talk about my
that
dreams
represents
being the
the
Ouroboros? I
Osiris
just
and
got my
Ra in the underworld,
books
but
back.
for the purposes of
I'm gonna
this
read them when
video,
I
I
find
will
them.
focus on the symbol's psychological importance. As I have demonstrated in many other videos on this channel,
Because we all are
Ouroboros
the
is humanity's attempt at
self-devouring
depicting what the universe
creature
looked
until
like
we pull
before
our
it
head
came
out of
into
our
being, when all the
ass
opposites of
or
life
stop
were
sucking our own
united
dick,
in
however you
one
want to look at
seed.
it.
Before there were things like day and night, earth and sky, male and female, and chaos and order. The unity of life and death is also evident with, as I said, the snake somehow remaining alive while perpetually killing itself. Like the creators of the Great Mother
Like
Goddess,
some sort of
creators
suicidal
of the
maniac.
Ouroboros symbol were trying to make sense of their origins and were forced to use imperfect human categories. In trying to picture the origin of the universe, I imagine our ancestors did the same thing that a lot of us do. We picture a black void, pure nothingness, pure chaos.
that is
This
penetrated
chaos
by
is
the
the
light.
source of life, so it has a positive and creative element.
Life
Yet,
existed
it is
before
from
the light
unknown,
came.
threatening darkness that
The light
snakes
transmission
would
is
jump out
not
and
the
attack.
sun.
And
The
to use
sun
the
is a
words of Jordan
representation
Peterson,
of the light
snakes were
transmission.
hell on our primordial
The
ancestors.
darkness of
So
life
it also has
gave
a negative
rise to
element.
the light
With
of
all these factors in
consciousness,
mind, it makes psychological sense
which is a
to
mirror
describe
of
that
how
formless
the
chaos
stars
occurring with
arose
both
in
life
the
and
darkness
death
of
as a
space.
snake eating its own tail.
As
It
above,
also makes
so
sense if
below.
we're using
The
human
process.
categories to ascribe a
The
feminine
pattern's always the
quality to
same.
that chaos. If that formless blackness is the source of all life, one can conceptualize that in human terms. That formless blackness is the cosmic womb, and only biological
Max gets it.
females.
That's why I'm recording myself watching this
Now,
for the
some
first
might say
time.
this contradicts what I just
Because the
said,
synchronicities
because
when
the
I watch
Ouroboros is the unity of all opposites,
certain people is
including
just
male and
undeniable.
female, which would make chaos both feminine and masculine. This is true,
Undeniable.
but herein lies the problem of trying to envision what the world looked like before it came into being. The Ouroboros isn't the only depiction. In Christianity, for instance, there was the formless chaos, and then God made order out of that chaos. God is the Father,
Yeah.
masculine, and the
Dang.
chaos is the cosmic
Oh.
womb, feminine. One cannot say definitively whether the origins of the earth began with something like the Ouroboros seed, or with an ordering principle acting on the chaos. It is something the human mind has difficulty picturing because it transcends our consciousness. Now, of course, this analysis of the Ouroboros symbol isn't based in hard data, but in the assumptions of archaeologists, historians, and psychoanalysts like Neumann. However, these assumptions are backed up when we look at the evolution of mythology throughout history. For example, Neumann suggests that the Ouroboros totality also
Archetypes.
appears as a symbol of the united primordial parents from whom the figures of the Great Father and the Great Mother later crystallized out. We see two great examples of this from Mesopotamian myth and again from Egyptian myth. The Mesopotamian myth I'm about to cite should be familiar to most hardcore fans of Jordan Peterson, the myth of Marduk and Tiamat. Tiamat was the feminine dragon of chaos, an Ouroboros snake, if you will. When Marduk, representing the masculine, defeated this dragon of chaos, he formed the heavens and the earth from her body. Once again,
Leviathan.
Tiamat, the Ouroboros dragon, has both positive and negative qualities. It is a terrifying monster, a snake emerging from the
titan.
darkness, but it is also the source of all life in the universe. Tiamat is not only evil,
But
she is
bigger.
also the generative cave womb of the Great Mother, whose Mesopotamian equivalent would likely be Ishtar, also known as Inanna. In Egyptian myth,
Nui.
there are the characters of Nun and Nunet, who represent the unity of masculine and feminine in the primordial waters. Primordial waters is another term for the formless chaos. What is also interesting is that the Egyptians referred to Nunet, the feminine counterpart,
Primordial
as the goddess of snakes. How about that? Now again, we deal with the problems of envisaging the universe before it came into being. For example, one might ask how Marduk came to exist before he created the heavens and the earth from Tiamat's body. Where did Nun and Nunet come from? And if they were the primordial waters, why did they have to be represented as humanoids? In all of these cases, humans are trying to project their mortal categories onto transcendent concepts. Clearly, there is no singular canonical view, but what one can do is look at these different myths and define patterns. One consistent pattern, as determined by Neumann, is that nearly all the early and primitive documents trace the origin of the world and of man to the darkness, the great round, the goddess. Whether, as in countless myths, the source of all life is the primordial ocean, or whether it is earth or heaven, these sources have one thing in common: darkness. And with our imperfect human categories, there is a tendency to project a feminine characteristic onto that darkness. For it is from the darkness, the cosmic womb, the womb of the great goddess, that all things emerge. Mircea Eliade's book, The Forge and the Crucible, presents several more examples of human beings projecting gendered categories onto other things. Speaking of Mesopotamia, the most famous myth to emerge from that society was the Enuma Elish. Eliade cites an analysis of this text from a scholar named Stephen Langdon, who notes that the sacred rivers of Mesopotamia were supposed to have their source in the generative organ of the great goddess. The source of rivers was indeed considered as the vagina of the earth. In Babylonian, the term Put signifies both source of a river and vagina. The Mesopotamians also employed the terms male and female in their classification of vegetable species, but this classification took into account the apparent morphological criteria, e.g., resemblances to human genitalia. In European metallurgical terminology, the kiln, where enameling material was smelted, was designated by the name of matrix or maternal bosom, motoshos. In Vedic India, fire itself was looked upon as the result, the progeny, of a sexual union. It was born as a result of the to and fro motion, compared to
friction
of a stick, representing the male organ, in a notch made in a piece of wood, female organ. And to conclude, there are the myths of the Zunis. Quote, according to the Zuni myths, for example, primitive humanity was born in the deepest of the four Chthonian cavern wombs. Guided by mythical twins, humans climbed from one of these wombs to another until they reached the Earth's surface. In this kind of myth, the image of the Earth corresponds exactly to that of the mother, and this anthropogeny is presented in terms of ontogeny.
The
formation
collective
of the embryo and
unconscious.
childbirth repeats the primeval fact of the birth of humanity, looked upon as an emergence from the deepest
Oh
Chthonian
yeah,
cavern
hiding in the
matrix.
caves.
And this,
Remember
of
that?
course,
Remember having to
echoes
hide in the
Ryman's myth of
cave?
Tiamat, who was the generative
Remember?
cave womb
You don't remember
of the
that?
great mother. All of this
Ah,
demonstrates
fighting
the
for
ancient
firewood?
human tendency to
Shit.
project gendered terms
Finding
onto
fire
the
on
world.
the surface.
The association of
Pain
the feminine
in
with
the ass.
chaos goes back tens of thousands of years. Though it has its negative element because
Keeping it
chaos is
going.
dark and threatening things come out of the darkness, it almost
Guarding the
always
fire.
has its positive element in that it is the source of all life. It is never exclusively negative, as so many progressive journalists might have you believe. There is a long human tradition of reverence for the feminine principle, regardless of its associations to the dark chaos. Not only that, there is a long tradition of projecting human categories onto the natural world. And with those projections, one again sees reverence instead of sexist stereotyping. This is the chaos that Jordan Peterson references, one that is both
This is why
positive
Christ is a
and negative.
sacrifice.
Those
You
positive and
have to
negative
understand
elements are also reflected
that
in
when
Peterson's
you
conception of
the
order.
rose and the
Though sometimes
cross,
we need an antidote
you know?
to that chaos when its negative excesses become too great, we nonetheless admire the chaos for not only its
It's
positive
not a
life-giving
sacrifice
powers,
if
but
you
all
don't
the other
see it
positive
that
feminine
way.
qualities that reside within. Most of all, we need it when things become too ordered, when the masculine principle takes over. When this happens, things become too rigid and inflexible. There is no room
The
for
Matrix.
improvement. When a state of order,
That's why
say,
in the
a human
Matrix,
society,
the
is
Oracle is the
unwilling
one
to
who
adapt
leads
to
Neo
new
against the
and
Architect.
sometimes
Because all
dangerous
he can think
circumstances,
is ones
those
and
societies
zeros.
will collapse
And
under the
when
weight
it
of
gets out
tyranny.
of
It is
balance,
only by
he
acknowledging
just
and
updates the
respecting
code
opposite,
by
the
destroying
chaos, and
everything.
all the positive things it contains,
That's what we're
that
seeing
order
happen now.
can
There's
learn,
the,
evolve, and
the,
take on
the
a new skin.
revolution is part of
Before
the
I
system.
conclude, I want to remind
This is
you
what
that I
you
will
need
be
to
doing another
understand.
video where
That's
I
why the
respond to
revolution will
people's
never be
comments on this
televised.
video. I
Because
hope
it's
that
a
by saying that,
revolution
those
of the
who oppose
mind
Peterson will
for
actually put
anybody who
thought into their
transcends it.
criticisms.
You,
I hope
you
that
don't
they will
capture that on
actually
fucking
listen
film.
to what I said and not just leave
Yet.
casually contemptuous comments. For instance, on my original video, somebody commented, "Ah, the misogynist. 6 likes." This really irritates me because if they took the time to listen up to the minute 50 mark of the original video, they would have heard me say that misogyny is wrong and stupid, and that if Peterson were a misogynist or sexist, then I would condemn him in the most
Old Max, he's
vociferous
doing the
terms.
Lord's
I
work.
do not have the time nor inclination to listen to people that treat other others differently based on immutable characteristics, be it race, sex, gender, those who are differently abled, or whatever. When someone leaves a comment like this, they are implying that a defense of Peterson is a defense of someone who does hate people based on their immutable characteristics. To this person who wrote this comment, and the 6 people who liked it, I implore you to actually direct your hatred of misogyny at actual misogynists. That way, actual misogyny can be rooted out of our society at a faster and more efficient pace. Finally, I want to briefly address one concern that people had about the chaos and order duality. Some feel that by ascribing gender to these principles, things might become too rigid, that it might not evolve just as order needs to evolve in accordance with the changing times. I think this is actually true. I think there is potential for these metaphysical concepts to be misused. That some people might try to reinforce archaic and sometimes harmful gender roles. In order to
You
solve this
mean
problem, we shouldn't cling to these concepts too
a girl
tightly.
can play
We
the
should
role of
allow them
order
to
and a man
evolve in
can play the
accordance with
role
the
of
times,
chaos?
but we should also be careful to not
What?
dispense with them entirely. I look forward to reading and responding to valid
I've never heard of
criticisms
such a
the
thing.
chaos and order symbolism in my follow-up video.
Oh.
If you like
Do
this
you guys
video,
not see
make
how
sure to
many
give it a like.
mirrors? It's a
Please
fucking
do
fun
that.
house,
It's
dude.
free and doesn't cost
Reflections,
anything.
back and forth,
Plus,
back and
it
forth.
helps tell
Inside,
the
outside,
YouTube
upside
algorithm
down.
that this content is worth watching.
The
So yeah,
world you
please
wit.
hit the like
The
button.
world you
Also, if you want
know.
to see more
No?
content
It's
like
not the
this,
world you
centering
found.
around Jordan Peterson's
Whatever.
psychology and history, please consider supporting
What? You talk about Tool?
Experience Matters.
You talk about
For
Tool?
over 145 years, more families trust
Maybe I
me.
did see this. Maybe I said
Videos
that was
on
some.
my channel
Yeah.
tend to invite a specific type of viewer.
Yeah.
By making videos centering around horror games, mental health, and psychological theory, I often see comments left by people who are suffering deeply. A lot of them see the suffering in my life reflected in theirs, and like myself, they are seeking a path towards enlightenment. On this pathway, we have come across essential books, movies, or games, all of which contain insight into our suffering. Insight which might allow us to push forward. In illustrating certain concepts, I've used clips from movies and games, but one image I frequently use elicits the most vocal response. The image you see on screen now is one I tend to use in my videos when I describe a path away
Yes.
from suffering towards enlightenment. This image was created by a man named Alex
Who?
Gray. He
Oh.
describes it as a blazing vision of an infinite grid of godheads during an ayahuasca journey. While the vibrant colors and mathematical harmony of the image is hypnotizing, it is not what my commenters are responding so positively to. Rather, it is artwork produced for an album called 10,000 Days for a band called Tool.
Oh, what? You listen to Tool?
Tool is a progressive metal band whose songs and lyrics are composed with cerebral concepts in mind. I say cerebral because they are difficult concepts, but also concepts related to human consciousness.
Rock.
It seems that on our respective
Prog.
spiritual therapeutic
Rock.
journeys, Tool is a common rest stop where we can signal to each other. Songs like Parabola encourage those who are suffering to reframe their misery with lyrics such as
None more
"Embrace this
metal than
moment.
us."
Remember, we are eternal. All this pain is an illusion. Other songs like Third Eye and Lateralis illustrate the human desire to transcend our current existence. Today, I wish to focus on one of Tool's most beloved songs, a song that speaks to an eternal human struggle. 46 and 2. I chose 46 and 2 to analyze because there is a core concept that influences the lyrics, a concept that I have discussed frequently on this channel, the psychological concept known as the shadow, developed by German psychoanalyst Carl Jung. This is of particular importance because the concept of the shadow has recently resurfaced in the public consciousness, thanks to a man named Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is a Canadian clinical psychologist who has become quite famous over the past couple of years for his analysis of current political events as well as his therapeutic methods. Peterson was heavily influenced by Jung, referring to the latter's intelligence as, quote, bloody terrifying. He has even cautioned against reading Jung's books in case one wants to permanently restructure their cognitive functions. In his lectures, Peterson has frequently referenced to Jung's shadow concept as a therapeutic tool. no pun intended. By understanding what the shadow is, one might find ways to come to terms with life's inherent suffering
Tools of
and
the
transcend
trade.
it. I understand Peterson is a controversial figure, whose perspectives have been viciously opposed by some. Despite that, I ask that you adopt Toole's Nicomachean ethic, entertaining an idea without accepting it. The title of the song, 46 and 2, comes from a fantastical, relatively discreet
My beliefs do
concept.
not
Nevertheless,
require
Toole
your
wrote about
beliefs.
said concept out of a
So
desire
do
to
I
seek
even
to
believe
find
him.
new ways to look at things. I ask that we put aside all prejudices about the figures being discussed and pry open our third eyes.
Let's. I'm down, digging through my own muscle, looking for a clue.
According to Carl Jung, the shadow refers to the dark, undesirable aspect of our unconscious mind. If we recognize traits within our souls that we do not like, we push them down into unconsciousness, into our shadow. For instance, in order to become civilized, we will sacrifice our animal instincts towards violence and selfishness. In order to socialize effectively, we might hide certain interests in esoteric or taboo subjects. Those instincts and interests, regardless if they are good or bad, fall into the shadow. While it makes sense to do this for the sake of order, Jung proposes that repressing these traits is not an ideal long-term strategy. How often in our nihilistic age do we see our fellow men and women fall prey to the temptations of egotism, mental laziness and sloppiness, carelessness and cowardice, inordinate love of money and possessions? By not being fully conscious of our undesirable traits, they control the direction of our lives. By confronting these dark tendencies, accepting them, and integrating them into our conscious life, we may become enlightened. We might find useful knowledge to help sustain ourselves. Naturally, realizing that we have these terrible primordial traits within us, bringing them under our control can be a painful process. Maynard James Keenan, Tool's singer and primary lyricist, illustrates this fact with the following words.
I've been wallowing in my own confused and insecure delusion.
There is a temptation to be consumed by our unconscious minds, to identify with our dark tendencies. Those who have failed in their confrontation with the shadow often make for the greatest villains, in fiction and nonfiction. They let the dark side of their nature corrupt their personality, and thus make the pursuit of chaos their sole motive. However, those who have succeeded in integrating the shadow into their conscious mind will expand their consciousness. They will move closer to enlightenment. The light that guides us through the shadow and back to consciousness is enigmatic, unique to each individual.
Unique
Seek for
and
that
conqueror.
beast to cross us over, that word to guide us in. Once it is discovered, we will supposedly feel the changes coming down. We will find the change we so desperately need in our shadow. The integration of the shadow is a continuous process throughout one's life. To use Jungian terminology, our ego is trying to become synonymous with the self. The ego is us, and the self is the ideal us. By integrating shadow contents, our ego may expand to the point where it is indistinguishable from the self. This is an abstract representation of what hypothetically would happen to our conscious minds if one were to reach pure enlightenment. However, what about our physical bodies? This is where the concept of 46 and 2 comes in. Our bodies are made up of chromosomes, molecules which contain all the genetic material of an organism. In humans, there are 44 chromosomes, 22 pairs, plus 2 sex chromosomes that determine gender. 44 plus 2 equals 46 chromosomes. But why 44 and 2 chromosomes? What would happen if human beings somehow had another pair of chromosomes, ergo 46 and 2? A metaphysicist named Drunvalo Melchizedek comments on this hypothesis. There are 3 totally different kinds of humans on the Earth, meaning that they perceive the one reality in 3 different ways, interpreted differently. The first kind of human has a chromosome composition of 42 and 2. They comprise a unity consciousness that does not see anything outside themselves as being separate from themselves. To them, there is only one energy, one life, one beingness that moves everywhere. Anything happening anywhere is within them as well. They are like cells in the body. They are all connected to a single consciousness that moves through all of them. These are the Aboriginals in Australia. There might be a few African tribes like this. Then there is our level, comprising 44N2 chromosomes. We are at this harmonic level of consciousness that is used as a stepping stone from the 42N2 level to the next level, 46N2. To summarize, our current state of consciousness is unstable compared to the unity consciousness of 42N2 and 46N2. We see ourselves as individuals. We don't share consciousness with others. We are islands to one another, passing ships in a stormy sea. It could be reasoned that our pain, suffering, ignorance, apathy, and general bad qualities stem from our chromosomal imbalance. Therefore, the only way to truly rid ourselves of these is by moving on. Upon reaching a state where the world has 46N2 chromosomes, we will maintain our individuality, but we will also be united in the form of a higher being in order to work as one entity. We will be individual puzzle pieces, making up a whole. Each has its own purpose and identity, and each will find its place. But again, achieving this physical and mental state will only come by contending with the disunity of our current state of 44N2, by contending with our shadow. We must listen to our muscle memory and contemplate what we've been clinging to. Upon confronting the shadow, as we already said, there is the possibility that it might consume us, that it might stretch up and over us and soften this old armor that protected us from the shadow's negative effects. There is risk in this process, but there is also the hope that one might step through the shadow and break on through to the other side, where 46N2 are just ahead of us. How appropriate is it that the song ends with each instrument pounding on one single note, symbolizing the body and mind violently struggling, pounding away at the shadow in the hopes of reaching the light.
It says it again. Come on, everybody.
Back in July of last year, I did a video that was sort of out of the ordinary for my channel. I decided to analyze a song called 46N2 by the band Tool. I didn't expect much to come of it. Normally the videos that do best on my channel tend to be centered around video games. Surprisingly, that video managed to garner over 100,000 views. To this day, I still have a disproportionate number of people telling me that they found my channel with this video. I've also had a large number of people asking me if I would ever analyze another Tool song. I thought that if I were to ever do another Tool analysis video, it would be on the song that everybody tends to cite as their greatest work, Lateralis. In fact, up until a week ago, my next video was going to be on Lateralis until I started my research. After going through various dissections of Lateralis on YouTube and
1 1 2 3 5 8 9. Dark 9 8 13. He said 9 because he likes it.
Because everything has already been said. If I can't offer an original thought on something, then why bother? After crossing Lateralis off my list,
Instead of saying
the
and,
logical song to revert to
black,
is Third Eye,
then
the final song
white
off
are
Tool's
all I see.
1996 album Onyma,
Red
where Lateralis
and
has
yellow.
done all
You can
the
say
analytical
red, blue,
attention.
yellow, then
Third
came to
Eye
be,
seems
and
to
it
have
would
received
fit the tree.
almost none.
You could
This is
you can
very
add that.
surprising to me because, in my opinion, Third Eye is as profound as Lateralis. My justification for this opinion lies in the lyrics. Hidden within these words are the secrets
Merrily,
to not
merrily,
only James
merrily,
Keenan's
life
spiritual
is
journey,
but
but
a dream.
also the overall journey the band is trying to take us on. Not only will I explain Third Eye, but in doing so,
I read
will
a short
possibly
story in
explain
high
songs
school
that appear on
around
the Lateralis
Anima
and Fear Inoculum albums.
about a
Before I
baby
do that,
born with a
however, I shall
literal
first explain
physical
the
third
concept
eye,
of the
except for it
third
wasn't
eye
open, and
and
he
its
was
religious
blue.
history.
They thought he was
In
born
the
dead.
Buddhist and Hindu traditions, there is a concept
It
known
basically
as
followed
the
the
chakra.
album.
The chakra is a focal point within our spiritual bodies. This spiritual body is the aspect of ourselves that is non-physical. It is what the East would refer to as the subtle body. Buddhist texts speak of 5 chakras within our subtle bodies, while Hindu tradition speaks of either 6 or 7. Through meditation, breathing exercises, and other methods, one may channel the subtle breath that resides in our subtle bodies through the chakras. In doing this, one can maintain spiritual and physical health and hopefully obtain states of divinity. One of the chakras that resides in our subtle body lies in the area between our eyebrows. In Hinduism, this chakra is known as Ajna. In Sanskrit, Ajna means perceive or beyond wisdom. Alternatively, especially in modern times, this chakra is known as the third eye chakra. By channeling the subtle breath to the third eye chakra, one can perceive a reality that goes beyond the physical. We will address the nature of that ethereal reality as well as its relation to Tool in a moment. The Ajna, or third eye chakra, is often depicted as a lotus flower with 2 petals. On the left petal is the Sanskrit letter Hum, which represents the god Shiva. On the right petal is the letter Sham, which represents the goddess Shakti. Inside this particular lotus flower is the Hakini Shakti, which is one of Shakti's many forms. Depicted with 6 faces and 4 hands, Hakini Shakti represents the divine feminine in Hinduism, as well as the creative power of the universe. Shakti's human form, Parvati, was married to the aforementioned god Shiva. In some Hindu systems, this marriage of Shiva and Shakti takes on a literal form. The Hindu deity Ardhanarishvara is an androgynous, hermaphroditic god and is often said to reside within the Ajna chakra. It is the combination of the masculine and feminine energies inside one vessel. It is by meditating on these masculine and feminine energies which reside in the third eye that one may achieve unity with the highest principle, known as Brahman in Hinduism. It is here that the distinction between you and God dissolves, and you become one with the universe. These concepts bear heavy significance to the song Third Eye, but before I address that song, it will be beneficial to us to see how these concepts pervade Tool's other works. At the end of Tool's music video for Parabola, we see 2 flaming eyes penetrate a man's body through the feet. These 2 eyes represent the masculine and feminine energy, as demonstrated by the blue and pink color of their irises. These eyes revolve around the chakras latent in the subtle body, and even burn a lotus flower in the chest region. This is appropriate because this is where the Anahata chakra resides. Just like in the music video, the Anahata chakra is depicted as a lotus flower. It also has 2 intersecting triangles, representing the union of the masculine and feminine energies. The 2 eyes finally unify in the forehead, where the Ajna chakra resides. This union reflects the union of Shakti and Shiva with the 2 petals, as well as the hermaphroditic god Ardhanarishvara. Upon their union, the man's third eye opens, and the physical reality around him breaks down. Upon achieving unity with Brahman, his ego dissolves, and he becomes one with God. This is the primary example of the third eye concept being referenced in other Tool songs. The references do not stop there, however. We referenced something known as the subtle breath a few moments ago, the energy that one must focus into the chakras during meditation. This breath is known as prana in Hinduism. Prana is the universal sea of energy that infuses and vitalizes all matter. It is the breath that the gods breathed into the formless void at the beginning of time. It is one of many properties that makes human beings in the image of God, as above, so below. The notion of the life-giving breath is near universal in religion and culture. The Greeks had a word for
I booked for a flight on kayak. It's
I don't
flexible,
think
we
it
can't
was
go.
kayak.
Can't go? I haven't been anywhere in over a year.
Yeah, no.
it.
That's
Numa.
good.
Numa
Oh!
is the second track
Says it.
of Tool's newest album, Fear Inoculum. The lyrics of that song state that all human beings are born of one breath, one spark. That breath is a divine breath. Upon death, the prana reaches out beyond the flesh, through the third eye, and reunites with the infinite.
Numa and
This
Soma are
unification
making
is
love.
also echoed in the
Even
song
death is a
Reflection.
sweet kiss,
Maynard
a
James Keenan
release,
speaks of
a new
crucifying the
horizon,
ego so that
or a
light
forgotten
lifts
one.
him out. In this song, the light he speaks of emanates from a moon, This moon might refer to the Hakini Shakti, who is often drawn with the moon.
What is a
or
map?
Is described as shining white.
Is it true or
like the moon.
useful?
This moon is referred to as she, just as Shakti is referred to as she.
Shamans, gurus, all religions around the world are simply map makers. The church has literally combined several maps together and gave us the Bible.
Of course, reflects the wise words of Bill Hicks, which we hear
Bill!
at the beginning of the song, Third Eye.
Today, a young man on acid realized that all matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration, that we are all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There's no such thing as death. Life is only a dream, and we're the imagination of ourselves. Here's Tom with the weather.
To say that we are all one consciousness experiencing itself is
It's not a
roughly
war
the
on
same
drugs,
thing as
it's a
saying
war
we
on
are all
personal
born
freedom
of
is
one
what it
breath.
is.
We are all extensions of the same Godhead, be it the Christian God, the Hindu Brahman, the Buddhist Trikaya, etc. We are not aware of this because the human brain is not built to perceive this level of reality, this level of energy emanating from the Godhead. We are only able to perceive the physical realm, the level of energy that is reduced to a slow vibration. But upon
The creative
opening
spirit
our third
clarifies,
eye, we may
receives,
perceive the
and
higher
animates
energies, the higher planes
the
of
creative
existence
human.
that abound like a million light reflections passing
From the
over.
source,
The song
the
Third
gift,
Eye might
to the
describe
manifestation,
many things
to the
Keenan's
Holy
experience
Spirit, to the
of
Son
that
of God,
Godhead. In the first verse, Keenan speaks of a face that is
to
bright
the psyche,
blue
to the
and
body.
shimmering. This face might reference the fact that the Agnya chakra is often depicted as blue or indigo, but it might also refer to the Godhead we see on the cover of the 10,000 Days album. It is a shade of blue. Its head shimmers with a million light reflections, and it has a third eye on
That was
its
my
forehead.
DMT trip.
The creator of
It
this
was like the
artwork,
net of
Alex
being,
Gray,
but it was
describes this piece of art as the net of being,
dark
inspired by a
with
blazing vision of an infinite
blinking.
grid of Godheads during
It
an
was like this
ayahuasca
was
journey.
pulsating
He is
with
the
every
creator
breath.
of the various pieces of art you have seen in this video up until this point. This is what he saw when his third eye was open.
And the more
We
I could
stated
breathe, the
previously,
better
when that barrier
my breath
between
was, the
physical
better
and
the body
spiritual
was.
realm
Like
is
you're,
lowered, the
once
ego
you start
begins
breathing
to dissolve.
consciously,
The
that's how
distinction
with
between
them
you
guys
and
when they're
God
breathing in and out.
blurs. The
That's
reunification is
the
an
prana
emotional
flow
one,
in that
as
state.
evidenced by the following lyric.
So that must
So
be the
good to
light
see
body,
you.
right?
I've
So
missed
when
you so
Alex
much.
hooked up to it,
So glad
he
it's
already
over. I've
had
missed you so much.
a
The
strong
blurring between the ego
light body,
and the
so he was
Godhead
able to
is present
see
in these lyrics. Even
more
the fact that we
in
don't
that
know who
same
the
place.
I is.
Like
Is it
everybody
Keenan
on
or is it
drugs
God?
or on
Either
things
way,
go
now
to
that
the
the
same
barrier
place,
is
but
lowered,
you're
both God and Keenan can observe each other face to face. They can watch each other play.
Why are you
Unfortunately,
running?
as with any drug like ayahuasca that provokes the opening of the third eye, the effect begins to wear off and the barrier is reinstalled. When this begins to happen, either Keenan or God begins to ask the other, "Why are you running away?" Keenan then begins to whisper several cryptic verses. He references a holy crow above him, which he describes as black and blue, an obvious reference to the Godhead. The mentioning of a crow is appropriate because in folklore, crows are known to carry souls to the land of the dead.
Randall.
In this case,
Flag.
the holy crow is carrying Keenan's soul to the Godhead. The phosphorescent desert buttons might be a reference to peyote, the drug that Keenan might have taken to open his third eye. This might be why the eyes of the Godhead look familiar to him, but it could also be Keenan remembering what he supposedly knew all along, that he is an extension of the Godhead, that he is a part of one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively, and the life he is living is but a dream. Upon realizing this fact, and experiencing the bliss that will come as he reunites with God, Keenan desperately tries to leave his body. He realizes that the idolization of dogma and reason in this reality is unfulfilling. It is false. He now understands the truth. He has seen the face of God. He has experienced the Brahman state. Any purpose this life holds seems so infinitesimal in comparison. Only the heightened state will suffice, and the only way this state can be maintained is if he violently struggles to pry open his third eye. I did skip over one part of the song, the part where Keenan talks about sticking his hand into the shadow and how he tries to assemble what he might have been. If you want to understand what that part means, please watch the video that I mentioned at the beginning where I analyzed the song 46 and 2.
Attempt to
Thank you all so
reassemble.
much for watching. If you liked what you just watched, make sure to
Just
give this
who I
video
might
a
have
like. It
been.
really, really, really helps me out.
But I do
Also,
not
if you want to
recognize
support
the
the work I
vessel.
do here, please consider going over to my Subscribe Star page. There's a link to it in the
The eyes
description
are
box
so
below. I
familiar.
hope you found this enlightening, and if you want to see more
Like phosphorescent desert.
Water tastes like, well, water. So we fixed it.
Oh, fuck
Mia.
you. What's wrong with water? What the fuck is wrong with people?
Your favorite candy flavors. Now cool, creamy, and made to spoon.
It's just water. It's
Well,
to
here we are. We
keep
made
me
it.
alive.
2021. All right. Aloha. Welcome back. 6 weeks it's been since I started this, and wow. Thank you for all the subs. I find that a lot of people are sharing the videos too on Facebook. I had a friend of mine going, dude, you never guess where I just saw you. So thank you guys so much. Tool Army. I started with you guys. I want to start the year with you guys. So this is Tool.
This is cool, man. Fucking sure goddamn is. Where is it? Wait. Where is it? He don't know where it was. Had this dream stopped. I was pretty sure he just did a review I wanted to watch. Maybe I don't know how to find stuff. I must be fucking dumb. 4 months ago. That's not... Recent uploads. How do you not have that? You're killing me, buddy. It's what you call fucking killing me, bro. Make me wanna. I gotta subscribe to have your shit in order, but it won't be in order because my shit is madness. You don't understand. Try to keep it clean. Okay. We're just. I'm over it now. Fuck it all, dude. How is that mine?
Yes.
We are the hallucination.
I guess. We in control of it yet?
We are the evolution. The continuation.
A small but growing group sees issues
We are the
from
hallucination.
both sides and realize stripping away systems is not productive, but instead adding
Our
additional
DNA
systems
is a
to
earth and sky.
aid existing ones. An element is not simply removed from an
Our
equation.
DNA
It is worked out in a mathematical balancing act.
The people.
The people.
The people.
Where was it? We may find multiple methods for doing this balancing act, but to ignore an element only destabilizes a given system. Who watches the watchers? The people. One of our biggest mistakes has been denying, rejecting, or outright losing and forgetting our past. Our memories bind us to these bodies in a time-space matrix, but this memory is built upon or predicated by our DNA, meaning all that led to us, our heritage, both genetically and culturally, is a part of us. This leads to a large and ever-growing aspect of our shadow, which is our history. All the Freemasonry we recovered over time alludes to an alternate history few are aware of. The agency's main goal is to expose this history. All free agents and outside consultants have their own personal agendas, but as a whole, we seek to liberate humanity. To do this, we must expose all aspects of people to themselves. Those who can accept who they are and where they came from can more easily accept others, even to forgive one's declared adversary. One must learn how to be honest with oneself, then be honest about your own history. Extrapolate outward into your family history, community history, county, state, country, world, etc. More and more people are beginning to imagine life in more ways than ever before. In the past, we did this, but always denoting a kind of hierarchy that has humanity somewhere in the middle. This is an illusion of perceptions, the universe playing tricks on the mind of the observer. But as all things, we exist at the crossroads. Here in time-space, change can occur. All concepts and notions are put to the test of enduring unto the end of naught. You can't see anything. There's a blankie over it. A blankie. There's a wall. There's literally the wall. So I can't control the wall. I build it and destroy it, and it's just around. It's my blank. At this point, it is safe to say all systems in the universe, simple or complex, are built by and are in some respect intelligent, i.e. they perform a set task set for them by their design, and using their given intelligence, they can perform this task by choosing. Chemical reactions are governed by a certain intelligence, but what some things lack is wisdom. Knowledge can only help one perform the task given. Wisdom can help one understand the work. A certain level of understanding and wisdom is necessary for some types of intelligences. Specifically, solar and cosmic intelligence are aware of many subsystems, as we are aware of gut biomes and bacteria and on our skin. But some, of course, like mankind, are admixed in their nature. Wise does not always mean good, though often the two are are together in a given intelligence. I don't know what the fuck that was. The compound was on fire. Time and space bind consciousness to the wheel. Though as one escapes the wheel, one is presented with a dilemma. Does one abandon the cycle of suffering or return unbound by time and space and continue to wake yourselves up? But what if this is the last blind, the last paradox? If we are all one, if one can truly escape the wheel, would that not free all? All live each life in a continual experiential matrix. The man you aid on the road is you, same as the man you ignore. We bless and punish ourselves. This is both why I know we deserve destruction and redemption. In that order, I'm afraid. This disharmonic level of consciousness is meant to weed out all IDGs that cannot endure the duration. All living beings will attempt all ways of living until one is found that alleviates the suffering of living. Are you talking? Are you fucking just... Media never shuts the fuck up. Goddamn bitch. Yeah. Oh shit. You will change your ways and you will repent, or we will wipe this place clean.
By the film industry. Excuse me.
Who this man?
And on television in movie reruns. And also recent happenings at the land which is rightfully ours. Years from now, my people will be forced to live in mobile homes and reservations. Your people will wear cardigans and drink highballs. We will sell our bracelets by the roadside. You will play golf and enjoy hot hors d'oeuvres.
the spring water, they're dried out.
Sometimes they have to kill us. They have to kill us. Because they can't break our spirit.
Dogfish Head's Hazy O IPA. It's oh so juicy.
He's gonna die any second and just can't fucking play shit. Gotta have Marshall. Don't forget to buy it, dude. Send more money to shit. Nothing good, mind you.
Fuck the rules, fuck the game, fuck you tools, fuck your lame. If giving a fuck means sucking up, then fuck it, fuck the fame. A bit unstable, fuck you brain. A bit like Abel, fuck you Cain. Dumb little fuck. If I'm fucking something up, then fuck my name. Fuck the politicians, fuck missionary missions, fuck beauty competitions, fuck bigoted traditions. I fucking hate that shit I do. And if you don't fuck it, fuck you too. Couldn't get a fuck who I'm talking to. Fucking who?
Fuck you, dude.
Fuck how I'm regarded, or if I get bombarded by sick creationists who are borderline retarded. Yeah, fuck me.